Hello, everyone. First off, I want to apologize. I the last couple of streams have been full of technical difficulties, audio, internet issues, and I'm doing the best I can. And it doesn't always work out because I don't come from a professional studio. I literally come from my office where I am trying to start a business and just a place of calm for me. Um, and the so I apologize if it cuts off. I'm sorry. I don't know. Second thing is, as many of you know, I homeschool, and that time is very quickly approaching. Matter of fact, we start this month here in August. So my vlogs will change schedule a little bit um, because it is an all day session uh, with Ping. So that will change. I'm not sure yet. So if you have any ideas, um, you know, I was thinking about maybe like right after school. But I know a lot of you work and are busy by late afternoon. So I'm not real sure. Um, and the third thing is I'm I'm getting tired to where my disabilities are starting to affect me more. And I'm doing my best. So hang in there. I know I'm hanging in there. We just got to keep going, right? We just got to take a breath and try to figure out how to squeeze in some self care more than 10 minutes, right? Mama's telling you. Okay, so today we are going to cover a technique. Now, this technique can be helpful, right? It could also be hurtful. So it's one of those very delicate techniques. Um, and the helpful part of it is, you can remove yourself from that stress, that high emotion from others, that would cause you to just panic or overthink things. The hurtful part is it can hurt other people, but there's a little bit of a nuance to it. Okay. And this technique is called gray rock, right? We know what a rock is, everybody, hopefully. But a rock is a natural formation. Sorry, a lot of dust in here and allergies. And it's just there. It's just a lump, right, in a cave, on the ground, and there's nothing to it. There's no design or color or anything like that, right? It's just a lump of gray. Well, this technique can turn you into a figurative gray rock. Okay. Now, this shouldn't be used in every situation. Only when emotions run high and it's just way too much for you and you struggle. Okay. But keep in mind though, using this technique to hide your emotions on a regular basis does hurt other people, right? So use this very sparingly. Um, Basically, it's where you don't engage the other person for whatever reason. They are just their emotions, their words, their tone of voice, it's all just too much for you. So you just kind of, right? You're just there. And while they may be expecting a certain response, right, based on the subject matter, the context, whatever, and you're just flat, right? Just like a bump. That may agitate them even more. But if you use this technique and explain to them, right now, uh, just a little example, right now things are a little bit too much for me. So I just need to pull back a little bit. And you can do that while being that gray rock, right? You don't want to say, you are too much for me. Your emotions are too big. No, right? Keep it to you. Everything's a little bit too much for me. I just need to process it, take it all in, however you want to phrase it, and then process it. And then later on, if that person has calmed down or they want to talk about it or whatever, then you can reapproach them when you're ready, right? And that way you have not internalized, but calm down and just process some of the things that they were saying that you could pick up on that, and then talking about it later. Don't just dismiss it completely, right? Because that would be dismissive of them. But come back and say, do you remember a little bit ago we were talking about such and such a thing? Do you mind if we continue that conversation now? Because I think I'm ready. See? And if they say no, then let it, don't push it, right? But this is also a technique that you can use when people are too much out in the world, right? But you also want to make sure that you don't come off as snobby. Because some people can interpret this as, oh my gosh, she's a snob. No, I'm just, excuse me, trying not to be involved in your big feelings. That's perfectly fine if they have them, right? But if they're too much for you, then pull back just a little bit, okay? And one thing to remember, and this is big, every time somebody has big feelings or big emotions or they're just yelling, it's not always about you, right? Because you don't, as I've said before, if you're checking out at a store and there is a person relatively close or a few feet away and they are just angry, right? And you don't say anything, you're minding your own business, checking out, and then they just turn around and see you and they just come at you, right? Well, you didn't do anything wrong, okay? But maybe that person is just at that moment over the edge. Maybe they're just struggling because nothing has gone right that day from the time they made their morning cup of coffee to that exact moment. Or maybe it's been building up for days because they had a rough time at work or things just aren't going well at home. Their car broke down. It could be any number of things that piled up on them, right? Right? That snowball effect. And you just happen to be in that area and at that store or doing whatever it is you do in your routine. So it most likely isn't even about you. It might not even be about the cashier, right? So that's when a good time to employ your gray rock technique, right? Kind of protect yourself just a little bit because you don't know why that person's upset because you weren't there to see the whole issue, the whole problem. And maybe you did do something wrong that you just don't realize is wrong to them. Okay. So they're coming at you. So then that's when you use it. You would say, I'm sorry. I don't understand what I did wrong. I'm just here minding my own business. You come back with a statement, a one sentence statement, and that's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to repeat yourself. You don't have to get louder than them. You just say it and then you go about your business, right? Now, here's another thing when you're out in public using this. Remember your personal physical safety, okay? Some people don't like this. They want people to yell back at them. They want people to engage those big emotions and argue or fight or just match their energy, okay? And if people don't, that may push them a little further, okay? And that's when you kind of, right, you watch them just out of the corner. You don't stare at them. You don't make big gestures. You just kind of watch what they're doing, right, to make sure for your personal safety. And I mean physical safety, right? Now, the gray rock is your mental safety, but your physical safety is also extremely important, okay? So that's mama's little advice there, okay? Especially if it's a stranger and you're not really sure what they're doing, but you can also kind of protect yourself using that technique to not engage. Now, obviously, you cannot go back later, right? If it's a stranger at a store, you can't go and find them later and say, okay, I'm ready to. No, the ready to engage is more along the lines for family, close friends, things like that. And that way, whatever problem is happening, whatever big emotions is occurring, you can help them mitigate that, right? You can help them feel better if they wish to do so. Now, one thing I don't recommend using this technique with is children. Don't use it with your children, because if you think about it, okay, apparently we have a guest star here. There's a gnat flying around. Yeah, I have fans in my windows and their screens, but apparently they just, summer. Refocus. You don't want to use that technique because with your children, because they're already not struggling so much all the time, but trying to figure out how to process and label their emotions, right? Because they're still new to this whole human thing. And if you go gray rock with them, then they're not going to understand how to process things in a healthy way. Now, eventually you can teach them. I am so sorry. You can eventually teach them this technique, right? For other adults that have big emotions that's kind of aimed at them or whatever. But teenage years, right? Once they've kind of can better identify their emotions and the things that upset them and then process them properly, this is like a way later concept, okay? And in some cases, they may never understand this technique, right? They may never fully grasp it. They may mimic it, but they may never fully grasp it. So it's something that you want to be extra careful with when your children are around, even in a public setting, but sometimes you just can't help it. You have to be able to pull back for that emotional and mental safety. Um, you know, but when use this technique, make sure with family, friends, or that inner circle, even maybe the outer circle, one or two, go back and talk to them. Make sure that they're okay. All right. And remember, you don't have to be someone's dumping ground. And that's a different thing that I'm going to talk about later, because that dumping ground isn't a healthy option. But after the incident has cooled, separated, you've done your thing, that person has done their thing, in the family and close friends setting, maybe you want to go back, right? Because not always being loud, because I'm loud a lot. I have a loud voice, but I've also been a stay-at-home mom to where I've had to talk over toys and television and other conversations. So over the years, I've gotten louder. Even when it's dead quiet like this, I'm loud and I don't realize it because I'm, after so long. But I'm working on that, because even loud voices that aren't over emotional or over big, right, can bother people. So I'm working on that. But expressing your feelings, your hurt, your anger, your sadness, even your joy, right?